Hello, I'm Jay, an arts manager, educator, writer, musician, producer, and professional daydreamer.
And I'm Miguel, a musician, arts administrator, educator, and lover of all things nerdy.
And this is Playblack, a podcast dedicated to nerddom reviews and hot takes on arts and culture and the human experience from the perspective of two melanated artists.
Just a bunch of anime bros with master's degrees.
And therapy, which I'll need more of today. And we'll get into that.
We're also joined by wonderful guest actor, musician, wonderful human being overall, Deshaun Gordon King. Deshaun?
Woo.
Hello.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. The reason we have congregated today is because we went and saw Deadpool and Wolverine, and this is an instant take. We literally got out of the theater at 3:45 on July 27th, and it is 4:40 when we're back in our homes to bring this coverage to you. So we haven't had a ton of time to digest. We will be talking spoiler-free first for a few minutes, just to get some overall thoughts, and then we'll go from there. You will get a spoiler warning when we move into the spoiler stuff. I'm going to start with Deshaun first. Deshaun?
So,
how did you feel about the movie?
I thought that Deadpool and Wolverine was exactly what I was expecting. It was effervescent. It was fun. It was very quick. It was very violent, very bloody. And it was I thought, such a good sort of twist on the good cop, bad cop sort of dynamic.
Yeah.
And so with all of that said, I had a blast, and yeah, I'm excited to see what is going to be happening as a result of this. Where we'll be moving. So
for sure, I think it set up a few things. We'll see what exactly happens, but we'll save that for spoilers. Jay, give me your thoughts.
I hated this movie. It was so funny when Deshaun said it moved quickly. I remember a moment of just like, why won't this movie end? I was like, why does it feel so long? That was one of my big takeaways, was how long it felt. I thought it was plotless. I thought it had no stakes. I felt like nothing happened. Like, and clearly the movie was more about like the personal resolutions of these characters. But I really thought it was a waste of time, and narratively, even y'all saying like what this sets up, I'm just like, how, Sway? How could it possibly set anything up when nothing happened in this movie? So yeah, I don't know that I've enjoyed a film this little. Here's what I'll say in its defense: I am not its demo target. I knew that. I have never liked any of the Deadpool movies, although for whatever reason I feel like I like this one the least out of all of them. I find them insufferable. The specific tone of comedy is not the type of comedy that I love. And I would have, because I hate those kind of people who know that they're going to hate something and still complain about it. I knew I would not like this movie. But the reason that I made myself watch this movie was because of a promise that I feel was not delivered. I will also say how people could like this movie but hate Thor Love and Thunder, when to me the tone, the nonsense is the same. The ridiculousness is the same. I don't understand. And maybe it's because Thor used to have a different tone and then it became Deadpool in tone. I say that as an insult. But yeah, so those were my feelings.
Fair enough. I would like to get into the Thor Love and Thunder Deadpool comparison a little later, because I think it's a really interesting thread that I wouldn't have necessarily made. I liked it. It was fun. It's definitely one of those movies where like you can, if you enjoy like kind of lowbrowy humor and just like constant references and all that kind of stuff, it'll get you there for sure. As just a massive nerd, references coming from like at 8,000 miles per hour, it's like made for people like us that know too much about Marvel and Disney and 20th Century Fox and all of these like broken production deals and all of this really online stuff. That's for us, right? That is for people that will listen to a podcast like this, just to get those like nitty gritty details. The cameos were a lot. There were some cameos that really like gave me a lot of like, oh, that was very touching, and the others that like I didn't really need. That being said, like, is this an intellectual powerhouse movie that's going to make you think? No, that's not what Deadpool ever is going to be, right? But is it something that if you can indulge in gratuitousness and jokes that are at a high level, mid level, low level, and lower than the ground level, all at once, all at the same time, I think you might enjoy this movie. I thought Hugh Jackman was amazing because Hugh Jackman can't be
anything but
bad. Like I've never actually seen him fail in a role. I'm sure that it's somewhere out there. Everyone fails, right? So he was definitely a highlight. Yeah. Anything else before we get into the spoiler section?
Yeah, I would say there's a narrative about this film, and the reason why I subjected myself to it that said that it would introduce or be the linchpin or finally be the thing that brings the Fox or mutants into the MCU. And no. And I feel like if I can spare anybody what I had to experience, if they're only going because of that, don't waste your time. I felt like it might have been a conclusion to the Fox universe, but I feel like we have gotten, speak for myself, blue balls, because ever since this merger was announced, and it was announced that they would be coming into the MCU, there have been multiple properties where you go, this time, this time, this time.
Right.
It was Loki. They were dropping hints in what's Kamala's show? What was that show called? Miss Marvel.
Miss Marvel, yeah.
They were dropping Easter eggs as recently as The Marvels, and you keep waiting for. The first time you thought it was going to happen was the Ant-Man movie because that was the multiverse thing, and
Right.
just no, no. And I feel like I was getting exhausted of just the when are we doing this? And I feel like the movie happened and there are so many potential moments where it could be like now, and it didn't do that. And then the credits are rolling and I'm already annoyed because I'm just like, okay, now does this mean that it's going to happen in the post credits, which to me is lazy and annoying, but fine, I'll take it. And then no. So yeah, that also really annoyed me because I'm just like, that was the only reason I decided to do this, and just nothing. So if that's you, don't bother.
I would say the take, if you liked Deadpool 1 and 2, for me, this was a love letter to 20th Century Fox.
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
Very much a retrospective on the 24 years of superhero movies, the X-Men, Fantastic Four, like all of these different franchises.
Honestly,
that were
even longer with some of those people that was in there.
But. Right.
30 plus years.
Yeah, 30. Right, 30 plus years of Marvel films. And I do think that there are a couple of connective tissues that can lead us into mutants in the MCU for real, not just like, someone shows up in the 616 universe somehow. That we can get into in the spoiler sections. But for those of you who haven't seen the movie, and if you want to see the movie, drop off now, go watch the movie, come back, and we're going to get into the Playblack spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine. We're jamming. We're jamming.
Wait, you froze a little bit. So say what you were saying again, Miguel.
I was just making a joke because I just want the music's going to be going over this part.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay. I'll bring us back in. Okay, and we're back, and we are going spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine. Okay, standout moments for you all when it comes to these cameos, because they were gratuitous. There,
Yeah.
there were many cameos. Almost too many to count. Can I say my one that makes me feel smart and fun first?
Yeah.
Okay, so back when I saw the trailer for this movie, I was like the first one. I was looking and I thought that dude looks like Pyro from X2. That henchman looking cat looks like Pyro from X2. And then I watched a bunch of trailer reviews and reactions from like other YouTube channels that I really
No one said
respect,
that?
and like no one either no one I was watching caught it, or like they referenced him as like kind of like a henchman of the Void or something, but no one that I saw said that's Pyro from X2. And
Mm-hmm.
as soon as he was sucking Johnny Storm's fire out, I was like, I need to trust myself, son, because like that shit I actually kind of warmed my heart, because in X2 specifically, not necessarily in X-Men United, that character was really interesting and kind of dynamic, and changed sides in a really interesting way, and to see him in the
Mm-hmm.
Void kind of dumped off was really fun for me. How about y'all? Jay, how about you? What's your favorite cameo? How about favorite and least favorite cameo?
Okay.
My favorite was Laura because she served a narrative purpose. And I think her kind of connecting with her father and getting him to like have his moment of growth was important. For fun, I've always loved Jennifer Garner's Elektra. It's funny, I really appreciate Jennifer Garner, the action star, and watching her become Jennifer Garner, the family movie lady. I'm like okay with it, but I'm just like Alias, Elektra, like all these, like girl, what is he
Yeah.
doing? So it was a nice return to form. Although of all the people that they brought back for those fight scenes, I feel like she got the least. So that's what it
Yeah.
is.
True.
And then least. Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, I will say, I called Johnny Storm like 10 seconds before the reveal. I turned to Deshaun. I was like, "That's not Cap. That's Johnny."
Mm-hmm. You did.
And then Johnny was looking at me, and I was like, "A great use of Chris Evans. That was fun."
That was fun. Yeah.
I don't know that I have a least favorite. I don't know that I have a least favorite. I just thought there was too many. But
yeah, fair enough. Deshaun?
Yeah. So of course my favorite, because it's so nostalgic for me, was Blade rolling up.
Hell yeah.
And I was like, that was my introduction into Marvel, going to go see the Blade movies with my dad. And so to have that like come full circle, I got very, very hyped, and I was already enjoying the movie. But when he came through, I was like, I'm going to enjoy this so much more now. And so that just did my heart some good. And I will say, I thought it was so great the way they did Channing Tatum's Remy Labo. Because it was just like, you could tell that movie would have been so bad had they followed through with it. But rather than just completely scrapping it, they brought it back in a really fun way that made his gambit really enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
And he's in on the joke, though. That's
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But he worked so hard to get that movie to happen, and this is all of us saying you would have done a horrible job.
No. He wouldn't have done a horrible job. That's the thing. I think everything surrounding it would have made the movie not great.
Did you enjoy his characterization in this, even understanding that it's more comedic?
It,
Yeah, like
yeah. Because here's the thing, like how and I don't mean any offense to those living in Louisiana, but if you have talked to someone from the deep south with that real strong accent, how many words do you pick up? Legitimately, how many words have you picked up?
It
And
depends on the person. Yeah.
it
In
depends on
X-Men
the person.
97, I understood that, man. You know what I mean? I understood his words, and it felt very much like a thing. And it's what I'm wrestling with was it felt farcical a little bit, and I was just
It
like,
definitely was.
but that fits the tone of this movie. So I'm just
Right.
like, I don't know that he would have done that way in the other one, but I'm just like, the whole
Yeah.
joke for me still felt like, bro, your movie would have been horrible. It would have been like the equivalent of Ryan and Green Lantern, but I don't know if he knows that. So anyway, I was just
I don't know if you. Sorry, Deshaun. Did you have anything else?
Oh, I would say like my least favorite cameos were a lot of the villains that we saw because we didn't get to see them do a lot, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like we saw Homegirl from X2 with the nails.
that wasn't
And
even
we
her.
didn't-
That was just
Yeah,
the
right.
character.
That wasn't the original character, right?
Ah,
Like there was only so much budget, I guess.
exactly.
Psylocke, they did the same thing, and I was just like,
Yeah.
why use very recognizable people when we know you did not get those actors, but variants? I
Right.
guess that's
Right,
the
Yeah.
reason.
right. That's the linchpin. They are variants,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
For those of y'all who aren't aware, Channing Tatum was on deck to do a solo Gambit film for 20th Century Fox for years, and it was just in production hell forever. And there was like moments where like this is gonna happen, and it just didn't happen. That was the big reference there. I do think that my read was that Channing was in on the joke. I don't think he would have done like that level of comic accurate Remy. Because it doesn't work on screen. Like it just doesn't work. He looks silly. And yes, you could not understand 3 out of 10 words maybe you got overall, right? So it was definitely played for laughs in a way that I don't think Channing Tatum would have signed on if he wasn't cool with. I would say
Exactly.
But that was one of my standouts for sure. I agree. X-23 was amazing, excellent. I didn't love the Happy Hogan scene at the front of the movie.
I don't get it.
Yeah,
because the universe confused me because that said 616.
it was.
Mhm.
So my understanding is when Deadpool had Cable's time and universe hopper deal.
Okay.
One of the things he did was towards the end of it, before he destroyed it, was go
Pop
to
into
616 and
other
ask
universes?
to
Okay.
be an Avenger.
Got it.
That's how I read that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even then, it didn't sit with me. You know, like I like Happy and I love Jon Favreau, and obviously like he's like one of the fathers of the MCU, right?
Mhm.
But it didn't feel.
Felt a little disjointed, right, from the rest of the movie.
Yeah, it didn't
Well, it's
exactly.
because it was trying to set the emotional stakes. The whole point of that, and I'm not arguing that it did so effectively, but the attempted purpose was to say like that whole. It's not about you. It's about them. It's not about you trying to be a hero.
Yeah.
It's about what being a hero means. And I feel like
Yeah.
they were trying to like front load that in the beginning to give him an arc to go on.
Yeah.
But again, who knows if it was effective?
Right. I think in concert with Hugh Jackman, it was overall effective. So let's get into the actual story a little bit.
Mhm.
So again, we just watched this. So as far as like all the story beats, we're not going to have them
Right.
off the top
We
of our
will
head.
not.
But
Not much to have.
Jay is very opinionated about this film. I should say.
Here are things that I think didn't work about the movie.
Mhm.
I did not like Mr. Paradox. I didn't think he worked at all.
Or
Like
Cassandra.
there were points where I feel like there were supposed to be like laughter or a moment of levity that just didn't sit with me.
Yeah.
And I find that when Deadpool is working up against somebody, he's legitimately enjoyable to see work. When it's just Deadpool by himself, like against kind of like a brick wall that is Mr. Paradox,
Yeah.
um, all those scenes didn't necessarily work for me at all.
The other part of why that didn't work too, I feel like, is it kind of undoes Loki, right? I feel like
Mhm.
Loki season 1 and season 2 was all about this morally gray TVA, but it ends with all the people that were remaining really trying to bring it in a new direction and have a lot of heart and compassion and like
Yeah,
honor all of these branches. And
Yeah.
so to then have them become the villain, albeit like a sectioned off little
yeah,
whatever, which
like a rogue.
honestly
Yeah,
speaks to then the lack of leadership or oversight of be what's her be something whatever
yeah,
Yeah.
who we've known to be a very competent person.
true.
I'm just like
Yeah,
still undoes something. So
hmm
yeah, I agree with you on that. I was just like, I don't like that the TVA is the villain again when I feel like we just did all of this work to unvillainize the TVA and to really humanize it. So much so
Yeah.
that I was confused about where it fell in the timeline. I was like, this is giving old TVA vibes. But then we
hmm
find out, like, no, it seems Loki has done the thing that Loki did, and this is the new TVA now. But like, how is this shit still happening? So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it was the final remnants of a bad regime in a sense.
Hmm.
hmm
So I guess in that in that view, I'm like, yeah, this would exist. Like there wouldn't just be this ultimate overhaul of a system that everyone immediately subscribed to. There might be
Mm-hmm.
some who were more fond of the way things were previously that decide they want to continue with some of their acts in secret. And so
Mm-hmm.
I kind of saw that and with but the thing was Mr. Paradox was definitely a brick wall. He didn't give Deadpool a lot to volley off of,
hmm
and that I think is Deadpool's like winning character trait
Right,
is that he is such a volleyable character.
right, right, right.
But also the again, I felt like the stakes were low because as he was describing the problem, I was just
Mm-hmm.
like, really? Somebody dies and now the universe is gonna die? I was like, that's what we're doing here? That's the lore that we're going with? That like, oh, Logan died, and because one person dies, the entire universe is gonna collapse. And I was just like, you've never introduced this lore before. Nothing in
Mm-hmm.
Loki, which deals with all of the multiverses, ever says anything like that. Like, this just feels so much like we have to make up a plot for these people to go on a quest or for this person to have a journey, and this is what we're gonna come up with. And I just thought it was so flimsy that
Mm.
it undercut for me again any stakes in this at all.
Yeah, it almost felt like a watered down canon events in a
Something,
sense.
yeah.
Sure, sure, sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The other thing that I didn't know, or I felt like needed more establishment, is Cassandra Nova.
Yes.
Because I like the idea, and like comic book nerds know who Cassandra Nova is. Most people don't. Um, so like you need to establish that for all of us who haven't seen her, and those of us who might need a reintroduction to her, and just to like here she is, and she is Xavier's sister, and that's it. Especially for those of folks who maybe didn't even see X-Men 1, 2, and 3, but
Mm-hmm.
started off with like the Charles has an adoptive sister in Rogue,
The first class chunk
first
series.
class
Uh-huh.
generation of X-Men movies. It's very confusing. And I think, yes, you can write it off as just variants and different timelines, and you wouldn't necessarily get that. But if she's going to end up being this kind of like bigger bad than Mr. Paradox, I
Mm-hmm.
would have liked her established a little earlier, maybe even taking away that Happy Hogan scene. Um,
And something for her.
Something for her, and you can kind of establish um, Deadpool's stakes at his birthday party, which I thought was a better, way better establishment of the stakes.
Absolutely.
Than that Happy Hogan scene. Because he's not with Vanessa anymore. Something went wrong. I thought that flashback scene actually with Vanessa, where you see like a very real like couple moment that happens to anybody, not superheroes, but like, hey, you're not communicating with me, you're not here, what's going on, and things fall apart. I think that's real. And I think a lot of people's biggest issue with Deadpool movies is that Deadpool in the comics you don't see his face, right? But this is such a acting is such a visual medium in the expression that you do need that, and I think the Deadpool movies actually excel in him taking off his mask for these dramatic moments. So, I have legitimate critiques of this movie, 100%, because there are things to critique. It's not that I loved it. It's I also just love a movie that knows exactly what it is.
Yes.
Yeah, but I hated what it was and what it stands for. I mean, my thing with Cassandra, I hated her because I was just like, she has no connection to the story and narrative at all. And to me, she could have been interchangeable for any villain and had no like purpose aside from maniacal, I want to destroy everything. And it was such a weird choice to me to choose a villain that we've never seen before, that a lot of people don't know, that has no connections to those characters. At best, he has an ancillary connection to Wolverine via Charles, but Charles don't know that girl. And so I was just like, exactly. So what is this? And so another thing that bothered me about it was there's been, I just saw this post and it brought up Cassandra, Agatha, and Madam Web, all characters in the comics who are old women, right? Who for these films are played by really young women. And I was thinking, well, is there a choice or is this just ageism? And there was no purpose to de-age that character with what we saw. There's none at all. And I was just
she was very young.
What's the fucking point of that? And so it was just all of those reasons of just like, there is no motivation here. There's nothing interesting about this villain. I was surprised that Wolverine's "he would have loved you too" had any effect because she don't know that man and that man don't know her, and she's been dealing with this for however long. And so I was just like, even this is I'm gonna say a good thing about the film because again, I have a lot of negative feelings about it. I agree very much with Hugh Jackman and his performance, and to me, the problem that I have with Deadpool sometimes, and it feels like it's the Ryan Reynolds of it all, I honestly thought was like perfectly encapsulated in that scene that you were talking about, Miguel, between Monica, what's her name?
Vanessa.
The friend? The girlfriend?
Yeah. And him at the table where it's just like, I want to breathe and I want there to be moments in between the Deadpoolness. And it is just constant and incessant and never lets up. And it is exhausting for me. And so all the moments where we get like Wolverine having pathos and like really dealing with something, and then even Ryan like being an actor again and deciding to like not be himself on screen to the nth degree and like having pathos and really working things out. I'm like, that's great. And what I felt like that scene at that table was, it was just like you're always playing. And when are you going to be? When are you going to grow up? When are you going to mature? Yeah. And it was so interesting to like have that conversation between characters when I'm just like, that's this whole fucking like tone of this movie. And it's just, I think that consistently just is why it's hard, why these movies feel like a slog. Because I'm just like, cut 30% of the improv. And I feel like I might like this more. But it just it never ends. It never ends.
But that's also a thing with Deadpool in general. He he's relentlessly Deadpool. Like there's no reprieve like what they gave us in the movie, but of course they had to give us that in order to create that sort of oasis of like some legitimate acting and some real situations to ground Deadpool in his humanity. But I do want to talk about Cassandra Nova because as a villain in general, I really enjoyed her. But again, like you were saying, there were some narrative elements about her that just were not there that they definitely could have given a lot more exposition on.
Right.
But for me, I'm thinking of it as archetypes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Her villain was the perfect archetype to go against our two heroes. Because our two heroes are these two melee-based immortal beings.
Mm-hmm.
And she is a dark mage, which means all of the things that she does it's not close contact. It's like, stay the fuck away from me. You're going to stay away. And she does that incredibly effectively.
Yes.
And I thought she was a very fantastic counter to who Deadpool and Wolverine represent. Now, again, the story behind her, the ad narrative, that was questionable. I do not think that what Wolverine said to her worked. I think she was playing a game because eventually we saw her come into that dimension. It's like, oh, I'm going to just take everything. I'm going to destroy everything because I want to do that because you all kind of destroyed me and this is the world that I can command. And so I want to be in command of just nothingness, essentially, which is, that's a questionable motivation. I agree. But yeah, I really enjoyed her counter. And when they stormed, I was actually just talking to my best friend, and he was like, she could have stopped them by herself the moment they like stormed.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, she didn't want to.
Yeah, she's kind of an agent of chaos. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Mm-hmm. She doesn't care about any of them there. She just wants to see what can be messed up the most, and how can she be a part of that.
Yeah.
And I figured what she saw was, oh, these two are going to lead me to something that's going to be good. And I can really take advantage of that and mess some stuff up.
Definitely.
And I think that's honestly all she wanted to do was mess things up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that take. Let's talk about visuals.
Yes.
Because there were some things that I thought worked incredibly well. One of them was Cassandra Nova's hands in the head, which was
that was so cool, so eerie.
Like it was so gross, and so especially with Mr. Paradox, that was like so much.
When she grabbed him and was just dragging him, I'm like, oh god.
Yeah, I thought that looked pretty good, all considered. The wind was taken out of my sails a little bit when Hugh Jackman put on his mask.
Why did it look CGI
I agree.
All of a sudden? I was like, what is this about?
I think didn't feel good. I don't know. What do y'all think?
I just think that mask design is not something that translates well into real life.
Right.
And that's just it. It just doesn't translate well.
Yeah, he looked a little CGI-ish at the end.
Well, you're right, and then them coming out of the bus after that
it was the bus and that pose they hit. I was just like, what is this? Yeah.
But I think that was part of it. I think that was a part of the unseriousness of the film, that he wanted to have his superhero landing because he talked about it, and he didn't stick it. So I think they did all of that.
I don't mind that part. No, that's fine. It was literally that I remember Hugh specifically looking computer generated. And I
agree with that. Like he kind of looked. He if anyone has played the old arcade game, the X-Men arcade game, where you play as a bunch of different people and you're like it's a side scroller. Wolverine's standing pose, he's just kind of always breathing and kind of going up and down. It looked like that, but in $1 million CGI, which still doesn't look great. I also wonder, y'all. We saw it in Dolby. I wonder if the detail we see in Dolby is not great for that level of CGI, and if it looks as bad.
According to Sean Levy's pre-movie interview, where he started spoiling the movie a little bit, allegedly he always
do that.
He always knew it was going to be Dolby and was designing the movie and doing the cinematography to be Dolby. So I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
I do have another compliment.
Please.
It's not based on the visuals. The best part of this movie, aside from Hugh Jackman's performance, I will say that he was the standout in this.
And his
It was the
chest.
music.
Mm-hmm.
My God.
The music, that music was just. It was doing it for me. I was singing up a storm. I was.
You were?
You were singing up a storm.
Listen,
Yeah.
It was choral and it was just heavy on the vocals, and I was like, "What are these arrangements?" I gotta look up this Deadpool soundtrack. So that was wonderful. I'll give it that.
See,
Yeah.
and
Good
that's
job, music
why when you
supervisor.
said when you said I hated it at the end, I was like, wait a minute, you were over here singing,
You were
your
singing.
ass off. What do you mean you hated it?
The music was independent. The music was independent. Everything else, nothing.
I will say this. Where they could trim a few things for me, because it was like it opens, the movie opens, y'all, with Deadpool literally exhuming our Wolverines from like I guess Earth 10
from Logan, yeah.
Yeah, 10065, I think is the Earth that they've labeled this now. The 20th Century Fox Logan's body, like exhuming his body from his grave from the movie Logan, and then proceeding to kill a bunch of TVA agents to Bye by NSYNC. Was that right?
Yes.
With the original choreo. Yeah. Like, so for the first minute and a half, 2 minutes of that, I was like, this is a Deadpool movie. This is exactly what this is. Cool. And then they did the entire song, and I was like, this is a little much for me. I love Dogpool. Dogpool initially kind of fun. Literally the ugliest dog in Britain, like named, rewarded.
It was all the kissing.
That's
the mouth stuff.
Yeah, that's the dog, right?
Yeah, I was like, we can stop that. That was the most cringy thing for me.
By the third or fourth Dogpool moment, I'm like, all right, I'm good with the dog. Like I have a dog. I love my dog. Like,
yeah,
but
you
I'm
both
good
are dog
with
owners. So when I heard y'all be like, "Ew," I was like, hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Dolphy does not kiss me in my mouth. I'm like,
that's not what we're doing, you know. Like,
and then Dolphy's cute.
That's true. That's true. My pup is also adorable. So, it's one of those things where like, there could have been a few trims. I think my trims would have been a little different than others, right? Like, where I think it could have been a bit more focused. I thought I had questions about the regenerative powers and how these different timeline folks have them. I mean, we saw in X2, 20th Century Fox Logan get shot in the head and go down for a little while. Like, not, you know, like 45 seconds later, he's back up, but like he has to shake it off. We saw this Wolverine get like adamantium katanas through the neck and shrug it off like literally nothing's happening.
Well, let me say this about that though. In terms of speed of recovery, yes, but one thing that I noticed and appreciated, again, props to Hugh Jackman, was every time something happened to him, he was hurt and he verbalized the hurt. And I remember watching like him and Deadpool fighting, and with Deadpool, it's like, I'll shove a katana up your head, silence. But every hit that Logan took was like, you know what I mean? And I was just like, it was one of those things of just like, I'm not invulnerable. I just heal, but it causes me pain every time. Like back in the OG things we talk about, the knives out of his knuckles, like it hurts every time. And I felt his hurt, and I appreciated it because it added like a groundedness to this ridiculous regenerative factor. And I was just like, why don't Deadpool ever be like, ow? Except for that one time he said ow, but literally was like, ow. Yeah. So I was just like, okay.
Dope. I'm trying to think if there's anything else on the actual story that we
if I can.
Yeah, please.
This to me is the plot. Logan died, and it was also super annoying because I was just like, that Logan movie came out so long ago that to tie that also to the linchpin of like death happening here, okay. But anyway, Logan died. He was the most important person in your whole universe, and now because I don't want to just sit here and watch you, I'm going to speed this up and destroy your universe, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to go someplace else. And Deadpool's like, I don't want to go no place else. And so they start fighting, and he gets sent to the end of the world time after trying to find a replacement Logan. And then the whole saga of there is, let's find someone to bring us home so that we can now destroy the time rigger. That is the plot of the movie.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is
That,
all the narrative
yes.
we have. And I really was just like, this is so stupid. And again, the stakes are so low. And I'm just like, it feels. I have this problem with The Magicians, the TV show,
Mhm.
where when I can feel you writing something, it's a problem to me. And I felt like every season
Mm.
I was feeling the writers set up ways to have these people go on quests and then split up, all so that at the end they'd get back together. And I'm just like, I just felt so much writing here. And like, even with Cassandra, for example, I'm just like, whoever the villain was, it should have been somebody that could have really instigated or spoke to the self-loathing that most of these immortal characters have for themselves, right? And if we
Yeah.
can mine that and make this narrative journey really about fixing that in a real way without all the fucking accoutrement, I was like, this could have been a much better movie, but it felt so frat boy to me. And I'm going to say something a
Mm.
little inflammatory. When the Deadpool trailer first came out, and I believe it came out around the time the Marvels was in the theaters, or was also about to come out. And there was that trick that Ryan does with filling up the guns. And I remember everyone lambasting the wonderful movie that was the Marvels, and then saying like, "Oh, we're back! We're fucking back! Here it is! It's the best looking thing!" And I was just like, Deadpool now for me, unfortunately, gives incel to a degree, because I'm just like, it kind
Mm.
of is like all of those really annoying frat boy asshole comic book lovers, they gravitate to this for what in my opinion is just like simplistic, mind-numbing, mindless, gratuitous violence. And like that's
Mm.
the stuff that they love. And so I feel like not only do I have beef with Deadpool, I have beef with like the community and vibe around it, and also reading these advanced reviews being like, Marvel is back in form, and here we go. Like, this is now writing a thing when there have been amazing properties that have come out in phase 3 that like people have been shitting on. I don't know. Like, I for sure went in with a chip on my shoulder, and to then watch, in my opinion, the film. I don't want to call it lazy, but just I don't know. So many reasons why this just wasn't for me, and I think there is always a part of me that wants to be proven wrong. I want to enjoy all of these
Mm.
things. I
Yeah.
love this
Mhm.
stuff. I love a lot of those characters, and it's just I just felt disappointed, and again a waste of my time. It felt like, because the one thing that was motivating me to go, aside from this wonderful community we built and feeling like we have a responsibility then to watch these things, was getting this answer that we didn't get. So I do want y'all to talk
Yeah.
about that, because you also mentioned that y'all think it is setting something up, and I'd love to hear what that might be.
I mean, I don't even disagree with your assessment, man. Like, I think that's a real thing, and it does speak to some of the toxicity in our discourse, and the toxicity of what is considered good and what is not. I mean, the constant review bombing, anything that has a woman or a
Right.
BIPOC lead,
Mhm.
or anyone that isn't a white man lead,
Mm-hmm.
is a serious problem that we all have to contend with, right?
Yeah.
And I think that doesn't mean if you like this movie you're an incel, right?
True. Correct.
Right,
Not at all.
right.
I just think that incels are more prone to like this kind of movie. Not that everyone who likes it is an incel. Let's be clear about that. Yes.
right. But it is to say that like, um, the one of the beautiful things about the MCU is that you can get any type of movie depending on what the franchising character is. You can
Yeah.
get a spy thriller out of Captain America, which is honestly probably is still one of my favorite MCU
Yeah.
films, the Winter Soldier one. Right? You
Yeah.
can get kind of a romp like Deadpool. You can get something weird and kind of uh, world hopping, time hoppy as the Eternals. And kind
Oh,
of is
such a beautiful movie.
Yeah,
yeah,
it
and as
fucking was.
campy
It
as the
fucking was,
Marvels.
Deshaun.
Like, and I like I think all those movies have merit, and they're different, and like they're not as bad as anyone would say, or as good as
Mhm.
anyone one person would say. That's one of the beauties that of the things that we love about the MCU, right? I think personally, and because I know we got to wrap this up in a little bit, but what I saw as ties to future MCU films was the TVA. period.
Mm-hmm.
I think having the TVA being okay to make these little changes, and being okay with other mutants or any other entity going from universe to universe without having the need to prune them or having the need to do any of that stuff, is how we're going to get like canon mutants in the 616 timeline outside of
Yeah.
Kamala, who
Yeah.
we know is a mutant, right? Um, and setting up that like kind of chillness with it is, I think,
Yeah.
where we're going to get there. I agree that it wasn't a big part of the film, but I do
So you
think
don't
that
think
that's
it's
where
going to
they're going.
be like the universe now says that there are mutants canon to this universe now? You think it's going to be we're
I
coming
think it's
from
going to be
someplace
both.
else?
I think it's going to be a hybrid, because also we have to now think directly tying into the Marvels.
Right.
Where's Photon?
Yeah,
literally. I thought we'd see that fucking cameo. That bitch
And
was in all these damn X-Men.
but she was recovering, so we might be seeing her very soon, and it might be as a result of what happened in this one with them lightening up on the TVA's restrictions on interdimensional travel. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
That barely it for me. I do want to say one last thing though on the incel piece, because to me, Deadpool and even this movie so much speaks to, straight white men who love that kind of thing. It always feels then very egregious to me that we never see Deadpool really exist in his queer identity, his canonic queer
True.
identity.
Yeah.
And I actually get kind of annoyed at his relationship with Vanessa being the anchor point, because first, it feels like she's always fridged, he's always pining, and I just think that's lazy. And I feel like in 3 movies, for there to be one love interest when you have one of the rare characters that has always been queer not do that or not have that taken seriously at all, I'm just like, that would be a great opportunity for all of these people who have all of these feelings, who also love this character, to like have a moment with that and to like connect with that and that thing. And so it always feels like it always like frustrates me in the back of my mind in these films as well.
Bit of a cop out.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, some of the funniest moments of this movie were that random TVA agent thirsting over Deadpool.
Right.
Deadpool thirsting over
Wolverine.
Wolverine. Everyone thirsting over Hugh Jackman Wolverine. Those are funny moments, like, because they connect with all of us. Because who doesn't think Hugh Jackman's a beautiful man? Like, period.
Yeah. Last question: do you all think, speaking of Hugh Jackman, that he's back because they made a point of being like the next 90 years, bro? Or do you think this was like I'm coming here to complete the arc, to round this off, to finish this up and be done?
I feel like he'll make a few more appearances, but like nothing that's going to be continuous. I don't think he's been brought into another this however many years contract. I think he might have more so, like you were saying, cameo appearances. And I had one really, really interesting question. Who the hell is Pete? And why was this one Pete so influential for this army of Deadpools? I'm like, is this the one Pete that is the same Pete in all of the multiverse?
I think
like,
so,
is this Pete going to everybody's Deadpool and like, yo, what's good? Oh shit, you got sent to the void. Let me jump this timeline and go to this next Deadpool. Because that's what it kind of gave me. Like, is Pete human?
You look great in that suit. I was like, I'm sorry, what?
That was so funny because
it was funny to me though. Yeah,
there were so many people that would have been like, actually,
no.
They tried to risk it all for Pete. Mm-hmm.
She was.
Yeah, about to jump those bones. That's for damn sure. No,
which makes me think he might not be just a regular human for her to have been like enamored like that.
Yeah, and she's B-15, by the way.
B-15.
I just looked it up. B-15's thirst was hilarious, but weirdly placed. Pete's an interesting character. I don't know. Let's leave it here. Deshaun, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Instagram at Diji Kay the flutist, FLUTIST.
Excellent. Y'all, if
Yeah, I know I
you
said a lot of things today. I stand by them. Argue with your mother, but also if you want any things in the comments, fine. I don't care. Miguel might respond to some things, but if you agree with me, I will respond to those and heart them.
So. I think the Playblack is a place where we can express our opinions and have a variety of them. It's why it's a cool place to check it out. So I am all here for it. Y'all, if you haven't sent this podcast to your friend, do so, please. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Playblack Podcast. And you can email us at playblackpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to send in any questions, et cetera, we have some cool things in the works. So please let us know. We're here for you. This is a community, and we were trying to figure out what your name is. Jay has an idea what your name is, but we're actively working on creating a more in-depth community where you can support us directly. So with that, we hope you have enjoyed this episode of Playblack, and we will see you back here soon. Peace.
Bye.